They say that the quiet moments before a storm are the most dangerous, not because of the silence, but because you start to believe that silence is all there ever was. That's how it was in my life with Ava. I met her when I was 17. She sat 2 seats behind me in algebra class, always twirling her pen between her fingers as if winding up time itself. I was just a dumb teenager trying to pass math without failing, but something about her caught my attention. We dated briefly before I graduated, broke up like teenagers do, and went our separate ways. Life quickly took over. At 19, I joined the army, thinking I could escape my past. But after 2 years of service, Ava found me on Facebook. I remember her message as if it were a dream: "You look good in uniform. Still hate math?" We started talking. At first, it was just casual. Then every day. Then she flew over to see me. 10 months later, we got married and were expecting our first daughter. The first few years were like a photo album come to life. She turned our small apartment at the base into a cozy home, always humming songs as she folded our daughter's clothes. I thought I had it all: family, responsibilities, and love, all in one package. But when you look at a picture frame, you don't see the cracks. You only notice them when the picture starts to fall. Our closest friends, Jeff and Monica, lived 2 doors down from us. We had fun together, barbecued on the weekends, and passed the baby monitor remote like a football when Ava and I wanted some time to ourselves. Jeff also served in my unit. We trained, fought, laughed, and suffered together. He was the kind of guy who didn't knock before entering. So it was even worse when I returned from 6 weeks of training and learned from another soldier that my wife was spending a lot of time with Jeff. "Man, I wouldn't say anything if I wasn't sure," he said quietly. But I saw them. Together. At your house. I felt like my ribs had caved in. Nevertheless, I confronted Ava that evening. "What did he say?" She laughed. "He's jealous. He's always had a crush on me. You know that." She knew how to look you straight in the eye and make you doubt reality. And I wanted to believe her so badly that I did. I stopped talking to the guy who warned me. I burned my bridges and called it loyalty. I was 20, in love, naive, and not as smart as I thought I was. It was my first betrayal. Not an affair, but a denial. The moment I betrayed my own instincts. And that's the worst thing that can happen, but I accepted it. The next 5 years flew by. I was honorably discharged from the service and got a job in civilian life, at a logistics company. Ava and I settled in the suburbs, had 2 children, a dog, and a little red fence that she insisted on painting every spring. But 2015 was the year when something started to change. We were approaching our 5th wedding anniversary. This is the period when, according to some popular psychology blogs, couples either grow together or start to rot under the weight of routine. We argued more often about bills, housework, her time with friends. She started leaving the house more often. At first, it was just to meet Mandy or have a drink with my friends. Until one evening she didn't come home. She didn't come at all. She said she stayed at Mandy's because she had too much to drink to drive. A week later, I picked up her phone, jokingly accusing her of being glued to it. She smiled, rolled her eyes, and handed me the phone. I didn't peek. I was just kidding. And then I saw it. A text message to her friend. Can you believe I did that when they were both there? Still drunk. LOL. I asked her. Straight to her face. What happened that night? She hesitated. Laughed. Then, in the space of 10 minutes, she changed her story 3 times. Nothing. Just a kiss. It didn't mean anything. I was drunk. I should have left then. But the kids. Always the kids. We went to a therapist. We read books. We prayed. I told myself that forgiveness is strength. But something inside me started to break. Was my self-esteem the only thing? There was one night, I remember it very well. I came home late from work. The kids were asleep. Ava was watching TV, wrapped in a blanket, and for a moment it seemed to me that nothing had changed. I sat down next to her, took her hand, and she let me hold it. Not a word. Just skin to skin. And then she turned to me and said, I know I hurt you. But you hurt me too, always working, always tired. Maybe we both failed. That was the closest we had come to honesty in months. I almost cried. I wanted to say, but I worked because I loved you. Instead, I said nothing. She rested her head on my shoulder. The credits rolled. And I remember thinking, this is what forgiveness looks like, right? Two broken people agreeing to share silence. But silence doesn't heal. It just stops the bleeding. At night, I lay next to her and thought about who else had been in this bed. Who else had touched the skin I once adored? Sleep seemed like a betrayal. So I stopped sleeping. And I started watching. But if I had started charging for every square inch of her lies, I would have been a millionaire. Unfortunately, that wasn't an option, so I just watched the circus. I didn't know it then, but 2015 was the beginning of the end. Not because of that night, but because it proved a truth I couldn't ignore. My wife was capable of lying to my face. And I believed her. You know you're in trouble when your gut starts acting like your best friend and your brain tries to shut it up. After that night, I became a quiet detective in my own home. No trench coat, no magnifying glass, just a dad folding laundry while checking phone records and pretending to forget the Wi-Fi password so I could reset it and peek at what she'd been browsing. Her search history was cleaner than a pastor's front porch. That was suspicious in itself. She'd started working extra hours. Said we needed the money. Maybe we did. But I noticed she always came home just after midnight. Never a minute early. I tested it once, pretended to be asleep, then checked the driveway when I heard her car. She was parked out front. Lights off. Sitting there. Just sitting. 10 minutes passed. Then she came in like she just fought traffic. I watched from the top of the stairs that night, heart pounding like I'd run a marathon in my mind. And for what? For silence? No. I wanted the truth. Even if it tore me apart. That weekend, I installed a GPS app on her phone. Just something basic. Called it a family locator. She laughed about it. What, you worried I'm gonna get kidnapped at the gas station? She said, smirking. Nah, I replied. But if you do, I want to make sure I can find the guy before the ransom note shows up. Humor kept things from boiling over. It also kept my sanity from cracking in half. But then came the moment that twisted the knife. It was a Tuesday. She said she had a team meeting late and wouldn't be home until after 1 a.m. Fine. Kids were asleep by 9, I stayed up. Pretending to be immersed in a show I'd seen a dozen times. The GPS app said she was at a hotel. Not a coffee shop. Not the office. A hotel. I stared at the screen, waiting for the dot to move. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe she was lost. Maybe aliens abducted her and returned her to a Best Western. Nope. 3 hours passed. She stayed. At 1:07 a.m., the dot finally moved. She came home smelling like lavender and car air freshener. Told me the meeting went long. What do they serve at those meetings? Bed and breakfast packages? I asked, deadpan. She laughed. Kissed me on the cheek. Go to bed, weirdo. Weirdo. That was me. The man who went to war and survived enemy fire, only to come home and be gaslit by scented lies and empty eyes. I didn't sleep that night. Just stared at the ceiling, listening to her breathe beside me. And for the first time, I didn't feel hurt. I felt angry. Something was building. And when it broke, I knew it wouldn't be quiet. You can live with suspicion. You can live with pain. But what you absolutely cannot live with is a surprise weekend visit from your wife's aunt who thinks astrology is a career path and won't stop referring to Mercury's retrograde as if it personally accounts for Ava's disappearing ex. I had barely begun planning my next move, how to confirm the hotel situation, how to confront Ava with hard proof, when the front door swung open on a Friday afternoon and in waltzed Aunt Delilah. Purple suitcase in one hand, a potted cactus in the other. Surprise! She hugged Ava, kissed our daughter on the forehead, then turned to me with a look that could curdle milk and audit your taxes at the same time. You look tired, Darren, she said. Probably because I am. Mars in Taurus does that to men. You should try lemon water with ginger. And stop wearing black. It tightens the soul. I was wearing navy. This woman talked like a fortune cookie with a hangover. And she wasn't just visiting. No, she was staying with us. For a week. Just until my Airbnb opens up, she said with a wink, as if housing her was a cosmic gift I should thank Jupiter for. The tension in our home took on a surreal layer of absurdity. I was tracking Ava's GPS every night, watching the dot bounce between the gym, the grocery store, and sometimes, always late at night, a generic cluster of coordinates that just happened to match a highway motel. Meanwhile, Aunt Delilah floated through the house like a wind chime made of unsolicited advice. "Darren, you seem angry. Are you sleeping well? Maybe you should open your root chakra." I wanted to tell her my root chakra was doing fine and that what I really needed was for her to stop boiling beets at 2 a.m. and stop asking my daughter if she remembers being Cleopatra in a past life. But the worst came Sunday morning. Ava had just left for work wearing jeans too nice for errands and a blouse that belonged in a bar, not a break room. Delilah turned to me and said, "She's a free spirit, Darren. You have to let her fly. She flies every Tuesday to the same hotel. Should I pack her a carry-on next time?" She blinked. Smiled. Then whispered, "I always knew Ava would end up with someone so grounded." "You mean boring?" "Stable," she corrected. "You're like a tree, Darren. Strong, unmoving. Which is good. Because storms come." That line stuck with me. Because storms were already here. I just hadn't realized how deep the flooding had gone. And then came the twist I didn't see coming. That night, while Ava was out, I walked past Delilah's room and noticed something on her laptop, an open document. Emails. To Ava. Hundreds of them. I scanned through, heart-hammering. They weren't just casual chats. These were coaching sessions. Life advice. Encouragement. Rationalizations. "He doesn't understand your energy. You deserve passion. The universe rewards the bold." She was in on it. Maybe not the logistics, but the justification? She was the spiritual gasoline to Ava's emotional dumpster fire. I took a screenshot. Sent it to myself. Then I walked into the kitchen and brewed a cup of ginger lemon water. When she came out, I handed it to her. She smiled, delighted. Opening my root chakra, I said. "Figured I could use it." She laughed, genuinely. I smiled, too. Because she didn't realize I had just decided something important. I was done waiting. Done doubting. And very, very done being the tree. Time to be the storm. By Monday, I knew I couldn't live another week drowning in this half-life. I wasn't eating right. I was drinking coffee like it came with answers. I couldn't remember the last time I smiled without faking it. And Ava? She was radiant. People say guilt eats away at you, but some folks digest it just fine and walk around glowing. She joked more. Slept better. She even hummed in the mornings again, the same tune she used to sing when we were young, before all of this. Except now, when I heard it, it sounded like a warning siren dressed as a lullaby. So I did it. I took a personal day from work. Dropped our daughter off at school. Ava was already gone by then, early shift, she said. The GPS on her phone showed otherwise. She wasn't at the office. She wasn't at the store. She was at the Lakewood Inn, same as every other Tuesday. Only this time, I went there too. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears as I sat in my car across the parking lot, gripping the steering wheel like it might hold me together. The motel had one of those signs with letters half lit and the other half flickering like it couldn't decide if it still had hope. Ironic. At 10:42 a.m., I saw her. Walking out of room 12. Laughing. Holding a paper coffee cup. And walking beside her was Jeff. Jeff. From the army. The same Jeff who lived 2 doors down during our early years. The one I cut off after the first rumors. The one I chose not to believe she could ever be with. And there they were. He leaned in. Kissed her temple. Said something that made her laugh again. She reached up, touched his face. And that was when I got out of the car. I didn't scream. Didn't shout. I just walked up like I belonged there. Jeff saw me first. His face froze. Color drained out like a bucket with a hole in it. Ava turned. Her smile shattered like glass. "Darren," she breathed. "Hey," I said, flat. Jeff opened his mouth, then closed it. Like he was trying to pick the best lie off a shelf and found them all out of stock. "You forgot your work badge," I said, holding nothing in my hand. Ava looked down. "Back up. It's not what you think." "Oh good," I said. "Because I think it looks like you spent the morning with my old friend, making use of a motel room instead of showing up to your job. But if it's not that, I'm all ears." She tried to speak. I raised my hand. "You don't need to lie, Ava." "Not this time." Jeff tried to step forward. I turned to him, calm. "I gave you the benefit of the doubt 10 years ago. I dropped a friend to keep a wife. Looks like I misjudged both." He flinched like the words hit him square in the chest. And maybe they did. I turned to leave, but then I paused. Reached into my pocket and pulled out the spare car key I always kept. I tossed it to Ava. "Drive it home. I'll walk." And I did. 4.5 miles through streets we used to cruise together. Past the diner we used to love. Past the school our daughter still didn't know had become the only glue holding this whole thing together. Every step felt like peeling something off my chest. Hurt. Rage. Years. I walked off my marriage that day. Or maybe just the illusion of it. By the time I got home, I didn't cry. I cleaned the kitchen. I made dinner. I waited. Because the storm had landed. The silence that fell when she entered the room was not thick. It was empty. Empty like a drum you tap on to hear how much space it takes up. At first, she didn't say anything. She just put her car keys on the kitchen table, took off her shoes, and stared at the floor as if there was a script lying there that she hadn't had time to memorize yet. "Is she home?" she asked. "Our daughter is upstairs," I replied. "She's reading." Ava nodded. "We need to talk." "Yes. We do." We sat in the living room, facing each other like two diplomats negotiating the end of a very cold war. She started with the classics. "It didn't mean anything. It was a mistake. I thought we were breaking up." I let her finish every sentence. I didn't interrupt. I just listened. Because this wasn't a confession. It was a monologue designed to beg for forgiveness. "How long?" I asked when she was done. Her eyes darted around, stopping nowhere. 3 years. It hit me in the gut, but I didn't flinch. I'd been preparing for this for months. I was numb, but it was the kind of numbness you feel when you know the pain is hiding behind a thin wall, waiting for you to turn away. 3 years, I repeated. "You slept with the man who held my daughter's hand on her second birthday. Who raised a glass to us on our anniversary." "It's not like that." "Then explain it to me." "Explain what it was." "Because from my perspective, it looks a lot like a low betrayal." She started crying. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quiet tears, like drops from a faucet. I didn't know how to stop. I kept telling myself it would end. That we were just stuck in something. But then time passed, and it started to feel normal. "Normal," I repeated. We sat in this toxic silence for a long time. Finally, I said, "I want to know one thing. Did you love him?" She hesitated. "I wanted to. But I don't think I really loved him." "What about me? Did you ever stop?" Silence again. And that told me everything I needed to know. I stood up. "I'll sleep on the couch tonight. Tomorrow we'll decide how to tell her. Together." "Darren, please." "No. Now is not the time to fix things. Now is the time to be honest. And for once, we're going to sit with what we've destroyed." As I left the room, I could hear her crying. Not for me. For the life she had burned and couldn't bring herself to let go of. I lay down on the couch, stared at the ceiling, listened to the creaks in the house, the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the distant rustling upstairs. My daughter. My daughter, who still didn't know that her mother and father were now actors waiting for the curtain to fall. At that moment, I didn't feel strong. I didn't feel righteous. I felt broken. I felt like someone who had kept the door closed for years and then realized that there was nothing on the other side worth keeping out. Only emptiness. I whispered into the darkness, not to her, not to anyone. Just to the silence. I deserved better. And for the first time, I began to believe it. The next morning came with an eerie calm, like the pause between thunder and the next crack of lightning. The house was still. Too still. Ava and I didn't talk. We moved around each other like ghosts, like people living in the same museum of a life they no longer belonged to. I made pancakes for our daughter. She smiled, syrup on her chin, blissfully unaware that the walls around her were starting to shift. I envied her. Children can sense tension, but they don't know its shape. We hugged a little longer when I dropped her off at school. I told her I'd pick her up early. I had a plan. I called Ava into the living room. We need to talk to her, I said. Soon. But first, I need you to know something. She sat, bracing. You remember my brother, Caleb? She nodded. The one in Phoenix? Yeah. He had a stroke last night. Her hand went to her mouth. Oh my God. Is he okay? I shook my head. Not really. He's stable, but they don't know how bad it is yet. He collapsed in the middle of the grocery store. A stranger called 911. Ava went quiet. I haven't seen him in 4 years, I said. We were close, once. And then life got in the way. Work. Bills. You. Me. The usual excuses. My voice cracked on that last part, and I hated myself for it. But I didn't stop. I should have been there for him. Should have made time. And now I might not get the chance to make it right. Ava reached for my hand. I didn't move away. But I didn't grip back either. You know what that feels like, Ava? That kind of regret? It doesn't scream. It whispers. Every morning. Every night. It becomes your lullaby. She blinked, tears brimming. I know you hurt me, I said. But I hurt myself too. By staying silent. By making this marriage look whole from the outside when inside we were rotting. She said nothing. Just nodded, tears now spilling. I booked a flight, I said. To Phoenix. I leave tonight. She looked shocked. How long? I don't know. And then I dropped the second bomb. I want to take our daughter with me. Her face crumpled. What? Darren, you can't. I need time. Away from this. I need to remember who I am without this house, this tension, these lies. And she needs to be somewhere calm. With family. Ava stood, pacing now. You can't take her. I'm not running, I said. I'm giving us space to breathe. To decide what happens next without adding more damage. She sank onto the couch. I want to fix this, she whispered. Then prove it. By letting me go. She nodded slowly, her world visibly collapsing. That afternoon, I picked up our daughter. We packed lightly. A few clothes. Her favorite books. Her sketch pad. I told her we were going on a little trip to see Uncle Caleb. She smiled. Will Mom come too? Not this time, I said. She has some things to take care of here. And then came the moment I didn't expect. As we were pulling out of the driveway, Ava ran out barefoot, holding a small object in her hand. I rolled down the window. She forgot this, Ava said, placing a stuffed giraffe through the open window. The one she used to sleep with when she was little. Thank you, I said. Our daughter waved. Ava waved back, and then looked at me. Really looked at me. I'm sorry, Darren. For all of it. I hope you find peace. I didn't say anything. I just nodded. Then I drove away. And as the rearview mirror grew smaller, so did the image of our home. The place where everything began. The place I finally walked away from. But this isn't the end. It can't be. Because there are still truths buried beneath the wreckage. Still ghosts I haven't faced. And one secret Ava never told me, something she muttered in her sleep that night on the porch. Something I didn't believe at the time but now can't shake. He wasn't the only one. It was hot in Phoenix, as hot as unresolved grief can make it, dry, blinding, unbearable. Caleb wasn't asleep when we arrived. Half his face sagged when he smiled, but he squeezed my hand so tightly that I felt something inside me break. We didn't talk much. There was no need to. It was enough just to be in the same room, alive. Our daughter spent her days drawing. She drew trees, airplanes, even our motel room. She made the world beautiful again with her pencils and silence. It gave me strength. But strength is a strange thing. It comes when you least expect it. One day, when I went out to get some groceries, the phone rang. An unknown number. Voicemail. I listened. It was Ava. I didn't know if I should call, but I have to tell you everything. Please. Just come home. I didn't answer. Not then. Instead, I called my friend from back home, Daniel, who used to work in technical security. He owed me a favor. I asked him to recover the old messages. The ones Ava had deleted. A few hours later, he sent me a file. What I saw made my jaw clench so hard it went numb. Jeff wasn't the only one. There was someone else. A man named Rob. He was her boss for a while. Then another. A bartender from her girls' nights out. And the one who finally broke her? Jeff. The man I trusted when we were still serving together. The one I defended when the rumors first started. The man I turned my back on my own friend for. The same Jeff who once helped me assemble our daughter's crib and swore his loyalty over a beer in stolen time. There were messages. Photos. One of Ava in our bedroom. My pillow in the background. It wasn't betrayal. It was pattern. A war I didn't know I'd been drawn into. And for the first time, I didn't feel regret. I felt clarity. I called her back. I got your message. We'll be home on Thursday. We need to talk. Thursday came. When I walked into the house with my daughter, Ava was standing by the window, as if rehearsing a pose. She smiled and then crouched down to hug our daughter, as if nothing had happened. I told her to go upstairs and take a nap. She nodded and ran up the stairs, holding her giraffe. Ava and I stood in the kitchen. You said you wanted to tell me something, I said. She looked down. You already know, don't you? I didn't answer. I just looked at her. It started after our second anniversary, she said. When you were working 2 shifts. I felt invisible. Like a shadow living next to you. And then Jeff, he just was there. He listened. He made me feel. Stop. Don't romanticize it. She closed her eyes. Nodded. It wasn't just Jeff. I know. You have every right to hate me. I leaned toward her. I don't hate you, Ava. I've mourned you. What I feel now is something else. It's like watching someone burn down your childhood home and wondering if the smoke smells like nostalgia. She shuddered. I'm filing for divorce, I said. It's final. What about her? She asked. We'll share custody. But I want the primary. I'm not going to fight dirty. Not unless I have to. And then I saw it. Her face didn't crumple. She wasn't crying. She wasn't fighting. She looked relieved. You already knew it was over, I said. She nodded. I just didn't know how to end it. That was it. There were no shouting matches. No slamming doors or broken dishes. These were 2 tired people who had finally told the truth. One thing remained. You said something that night. You said he wasn't the only one. She blinked, then looked down. I didn't think you heard. I heard. She nodded. You always heard me, Darren. I just stopped listening to myself. We didn't hug. We weren't angry. We just stood there in the quiet house where laughter and bedtime stories had once filled the air, knowing it would never be the same again. They say there's a basement at the bottom. I found mine the night after we signed the divorce papers. The house was quiet. Ava had taken our daughter to her sister's for the weekend. I sat in the living room with the lights off, drinking whiskey, which I hadn't touched since my time in the army. Grief doesn't come all at once. It seeps through the floor. It lingers in the sounds of the quiet dishwasher, in the empty half of the bed, in the untouched toothbrush. We make choices, and then our choices make us. Caleb said that when I was in Phoenix. He was in and out of consciousness, but at that moment his eyes were clear. He looked at me as if he could see the mistakes I hadn't yet admitted to myself. And there were many. I wasn't just a man who had been betrayed. I was a man who had allowed his wife to treat me like a human being. I threw myself into my work, convincing myself that duty was love. I was absent. I thought that providing for her was enough when all she wanted was my presence. No, she had no right to cheat on me. But I definitely gave her space to forget who I was. Some nights I looked back on our first year. Not just the smiles, but the silences I ignored. The time she cried in the car after dinner with my parents and I didn't ask why. The times I chose overtime over conversation. The way I ignored her loneliness because I mistook it for grumbling. We were both architects of this ruin. She broke her promises. But I created the distance. You can drown 2 meters underwater just as easily as you can at 60, my father used to say. Depth doesn't matter when you can't breathe. And I stopped breathing a long time ago. With every sip of whiskey, the burning sensation subsided. But the truth? It continued to burn. I opened my laptop. I pulled out old videos. Birthdays. The beach. Our daughter's first words. Ava is laughing, filming us. I'm clumsy, lifting the cake too high. We were happy. Or we were good at pretending. And then, just as I was about to close my laptop, I found a video I didn't remember. Ava is sitting on the floor talking to the camera. Darren, if you're watching this, something must have gone wrong. I filmed this during a very difficult time for me. I don't know if we'll make it through this, but I want you to know that I loved you then. Even when I didn't feel it. Even when I forgot how to show it. She looked tired. Devastated. Vulnerable. You always took so much on yourself. I just wanted you to let me take something too. I waited for you to need me. And when that didn't happen, I looked for someone who did. That doesn't make me better. It makes me human. The screen went black. I closed my laptop. I sat in the dark. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was something. A thread stretching into the past. A hint that maybe the worst things we do aren't evil. Just desperation. Weakness. The unspeakable. I thought about our daughter. About what she would believe when she grew up, about love. About marriage. About trust. Then I realized who I had to become. Not just a man who had survived betrayal. But a man who understood how fragile we all are. And still chose strength. Because there was one more thing I hadn't done. Something that I knew would change everything. Tomorrow, I'm going to face Jeff. There's no script for confronting the man who slept with your wife. Just instinct, restraint, and the voice in your head reminding you not to let your pain define your actions. Jeff opened the door like he'd been expecting me. No smile. No bravado. Just guilt worn so openly it could have been a uniform. I deserve whatever you're here to say, he started. Good, I said. Then let me say it. And I did. I told him how his betrayal wasn't just about Ava. It was about trust. The kind men bleed for in foxholes and celebrate in baby showers. I reminded him that he stood beside me the day I promised Ava forever. That he held my child, laughed with my family, and burned every bridge he ever built with one choice. He didn't argue. Didn't try to explain. I thought she loved me, he said, eyes to the ground. She didn't, I replied. She just didn't know how to stop falling. And you didn't know how to stop catching her. I turned to leave, but before I did, I said one last thing. What you did will follow you. And I hope it makes you better, not bitter. Because we both failed. I just didn't realize how much until I lost everything. I walked away feeling lighter. Not because I got justice, but because I got peace. A kind that comes only when you say what needed to be said, not screamed. Now it's been 6 months. The papers are finalized. Our daughter splits time between us. Ava and I are civil, even kind on the better days. She started therapy. I did too. The world didn't end. It just got quiet enough for me to hear myself again. And for anyone out there reading this, aching through something similar, I want to say this. You are not what was done to you. You are not the version of yourself you became to survive them. You are not broken beyond repair. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's just the decision to stop drinking poison you meant for someone else. Healing doesn't look like moving on. It looks like moving inward. I've learned that love isn't about grand gestures. It's about being present when it's uncomfortable. Listening when it's inconvenient. Loving when it's hardest. And I learned, the hard way, that silence is also a choice. And often, the worst one. So speak. Love out loud. Fight fair. And if it ends, let it end with dignity. I walk my daughter to school now. Every morning. She tells me stories about stars and dinosaurs and why pancakes are better than waffles. She once looked up at me and said, "Dad, do you feel better now?" And I smiled. Real, honest to God smiled. Yeah, kiddo. I really do. If you're still reading this, I'll leave you with the only truth that matters. You can rebuild. You just have to choose it.